The streets are alive with the sounds of a busy morning. Cars honk impatiently, their drivers eager to get to their destinations. People walk briskly, some clutching coffee cups, others staring at their phones, weaving through the crowd. The city feels alive, almost like it has its own heartbeat. On one corner, a man steps out of a trendy cafe. His name is David, and everything about him exudes confidence. His dark suit is perfectly tailored, his polished shoes shine in the sunlight, and he carries a sleek leather briefcase. David pauses for a moment, checking his watch. His face calm but focused. He looks like a man who has his life together, a man with a plan. Across the street, the world seems completely different. A small girl sits on a worn-out bench, her shoulders hunched and her head lowered. She looks so out of place amidst the city's energy. Her clothes are old and too big for her small frame. Her bald head glints in the sunlight, a silent reminder of a battle she's fighting, one she never asked for. This is Sonia. She's maybe 10 years old, but her eyes tell a story far older than her years. Her face is pale, and she clutches a tattered bag close to her chest like it holds her entire world. People pass her by without a second glance, their eyes darting away as if seeing her might make them uncomfortable. David adjusts his tie and steps onto the sidewalk, blending into the crowd. He walks confidently, his pace steady, his destination clear. As he moves forward, Sonia watches him from her bench. She hesitates, her small hands gripping the edge of the bench tightly. Her heart races. She's scared. What if he ignores her? What if he brushes her off, like so many others have? But she knows she has no choice. She needs help, real help, and this man feels different. He doesn't rush past like everyone else. He seems steady, calm, approachable. Summoning every bit of courage she has, Sonia slowly stands. Her knees wobble, but she steadies herself, clutching her bag for support. She takes a shaky step toward David, her thin voice barely audible over the noise of the city. "Excuse me, sir," she says softly, her words trembling. David doesn't hear her at first. The city noise swallows her voice. She steps closer, her heart pounding harder. "Please, sir, can you help me?" This time her voice reaches him. David stops mid-step and turns around. She looks so fragile, so out of place. Her words hang in the air, raw and full of desperation. David blinks, caught off guard. He doesn't say anything right away, but something about Sonia's voice, about her presence, tugs at him. The city's noise fades into the background as the two stand there, connected by that single moment. And in that moment, everything begins to change. David stands there, staring at the girl in front of him. The bustling city around them seems to blur for a moment. He's not sure what to say. He wasn't expecting this, a young girl, frail and trembling, standing in the middle of the busy sidewalk, asking for help. I need help," Sonia says again, her voice barely above a whisper. Her eyes are wide, her hands clutching a small bag to her chest like a shield. David clears his throat, snapping himself out of his thoughts. "Help with what?" he asks, his tone more cautious than unkind. Sonia hesitates, her gaze dropping to the ground. She isn't like the others who sometimes approach him asking for change or food. She doesn't reach out her hand or look at him with expectation. Instead, she takes a deep breath, steadying herself. "I am looking for someone," she says softly. "My aunt. I don't know where she is, but I have to find her." David furrows his brow. He wasn't expecting that. There is something in her voice, a mix of desperation and determination that makes him pause. He glances at the bag in her arms, noticing how tightly she holds it, as if letting go would mean losing everything. "What's your aunt's name?" he asks, his voice gentler now. "Her name is Martha. Martha Green," Sonia replies. Her words are shaky, as if just saying the name brings up memories she'd rather not face. David nods slowly, still processing the situation. His instinct tells him, this isn't just a simple case of a lost child. There is something deeper here. He notices the bracelet on her wrist, a plain, white medical ID band. His eyes linger on it for a moment before he asks, "Are you okay? Are you sick?" Sonia glances down at her wrist and quickly pulls her sleeve over it, as if hiding the bracelet could make everything go away. "It's nothing," she mumbles. I need to find my aunt." But David isn't convinced. That bracelet isn't something you'd wear unless it was serious. He's seen it before on people leaving hospitals or clinics. His gut tells him, there is more to this than she's letting on. Where are your parents? He asks carefully. Her face crumples at the question, and for a moment he regrets asking. They're gone, she whispers. Both of them. The weight of her words hangs in the air. David exhales deeply, glancing down at his watch. He has a meeting to get to, a schedule to keep. Every second he stands here, he risks being late. He should walk away. He knows that. But something about Sonia keeps him rooted in place. This isn't just some random encounter. There is a reason she stopped him, out of all the people on this crowded street. Do you have anywhere to go? A place to stay? He asks. Sonia shakes her head. I've been staying wherever I can. I just thought maybe you could help me find her. My aunt. David's mind races. He's supposed to be at a conference call in 20 minutes. His assistant is waiting for him. His client's expecting him to close a deal. Every minute he spends here puts his day at risk. But then he looks at Sonia again, her thin frame, her tired eyes, the medical bracelet she tried to hide. She doesn't ask for money or food, just help. Real help. And David can't shake the feeling that if he walks away now, no one else will stop to listen. He glances at his watch one more time, then lets out a sigh. Okay, he says, more to himself than to her. Let's figure this out. Her face lights up with relief, and for the first time, he notices the faintest trace of a smile. Thank you, she says quietly. David motions for her to follow him. Come on. Let's start by figuring out where to look for your aunt. As they walk, Sonia clings tightly to her bag. David doesn't know what he's gotten himself into. But he knows one thing for sure, this isn't just another ordinary day. And with that decision, the course of both their lives begins to change. David walks with purposeful strides, his briefcase swinging at his side. But his mind isn't on his work or the meeting he's about to miss. It's on the young girl walking silently beside him. Sonia clutches her bag tightly, her steps hesitant, as though she's afraid that at any moment David might change his mind and leave her behind. At first, David is unsure of what to say. He isn't used to these kinds of situations. His world is one of meetings, deals, and deadlines. Helping a stranger, especially a child, in such obvious need is uncharted territory. But as he glances at Sonia, he feels a pull in his chest. Something about her vulnerability, her quiet bravery, stirs something he hasn't felt in a long time, a deep, genuine sense of responsibility. Hey, he says softly, breaking the silence. Do you want to tell me a bit more about what's going on? I mean, how did you end up here, on your own? Sonia hesitates, her fingers gripping the strap of her bag. For a moment, David thinks she might not answer, but then she speaks. Her voice is low, barely audible over the city noise. My parents. They both got sick, she begins. First my dad, then my mum. They tried their best to take care of me, even when they weren't feeling good themselves. But cancer doesn't care about that. It just takes everything. David steps slow, the weight of her words sinking in. He's heard stories like this before, but hearing it from a child standing next to him makes it feel different, personal. When my mum passed away, Sonia continues, I didn't have anyone left. They told me I'd go into foster care, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to be with strangers. My mum always said my Aunt Martha would take care of me, but I don't know where she is. I've been trying to find her. Her voice trembles, but she presses on. And then I got sick too. The doctors said it was leukemia. I didn't know what that meant at first, but now I do. It means I might not have much time. David stops walking. He turns to face her, and for the first time, he sees the full weight of her struggle written on her face. This isn't just a child who's lost her parents. This is a child fighting for her life alone. You've been on your own this whole time? He asks, his voice softer now. Sonia nods, her eyes downcast. I've been staying wherever I can. Shelters sometimes, but they're scary. Other times I just sleep wherever it's safe. David feels a lump in his throat. He's always prided himself on his ability to make decisions quickly and logically. But this situation shakes him in a way he didn't expect. He realizes this isn't just about helping Sonia find her aunt. It's about making sure she has a real chance to survive. Okay, he says after a moment. The first thing we're going to do is make sure you are okay. We'll figure out the rest after that. David leans on the counter, his voice calm but firm. She needs to see someone, please. It's important. The receptionist glances at Sonia, then nods. We'll get her in right away. A few minutes later, a nurse steps into the room. Her name is Nurse Lisa, and she exudes warmth and kindness. She crouches down to Sonia's level, offering a gentle smile. Hi there, Lisa says. My name's Lisa. I'm going to take a quick look at you, okay? Sonia nods shyly, her fingers still gripping her bag. Lisa carefully examines her, noting the medical bracelet and the pallor of her skin. Her expression becomes more serious as she speaks. Have you been feeling very tired lately? Lisa asks. Sonia nods. A lot, and sometimes my stomach hurts. Lisa glances at David, her smile fading. She's definitely not in good shape. We'll need to run some tests to see where things stand. David watches the interaction, a mix of emotions swirling inside him. He's used to solving problems with quick decisions and clear solutions. But this feels different. It's messy, emotional. Yet he knows he can't walk away, not now. Lisa steps aside with David while Sonia sits quietly on the exam table. She's not just dealing with homelessness, Lisa explains. Her condition is serious. Without treatment, it could progress quickly. She needs consistent care soon. David exhales deeply, rubbing the back of his neck. He's always been a man of action, but this situation feels overwhelming. Still, one thing is clear. Sonia needs help, and he's the only one willing to give it. Am I in trouble? She asks softly. David crouches down in front of her, shaking his head. No, Sonia, you are not in trouble. You are just going through something really hard. But I am going to help you. We'll figure this out together. Sonia's lip trembles, and for the first time, tears well up in her eyes. She doesn't say anything, but the look on her face says it all. Relief, gratitude, and a flicker of hope. David smiles at Sonia, gesturing for her to sit beside him. Do you still have the notebook you mentioned? He asks gently. Sonia nods and carefully pulls a small, worn notebook from her bag. It's faded and tattered at the edges, but to her, it's a treasure. She flips through the pages, revealing scribbled addresses, notes, and a small, crumpled photo of her parents. This is my mum and dad, she whispers, showing him the picture. David studies the immature young couple with bright smiles, holding a much younger Sonia in their arms. The warmth in their faces makes the reality of their absence even more heartbreaking. What's this address here? David asks, pointing to one of the entries. Sonia shrugs. I don't know. I just wrote down places I heard about. I thought maybe one of them would lead me to my aunt. David nods, sensing the notebook is more than just a collection of addresses. It's a lifeline, a symbol of hope for Sonia. We'll start with this one, he says firmly. David postpones his meetings, pushing his professional life to the side. He calls his assistant to cancel his commitments for the day, knowing full well the consequences of delaying his work. But as he looks at Sonia, he feels certain he's making the right choice. Their first stop is a local shelter listed in Sonia's notebook. The shelter is crowded and chaotic, with people lining up for food and a volunteer struggling to keep track of everyone. David approaches the front desk, Sonia standing close behind him. We're looking for someone who might know about this girl's aunt. David explains, showing the picture of Sonia's parents. The volunteer barely glances at the photo. We get hundreds of people coming through here, she says dismissively. I wouldn't know. Could you at least check your records? David presses. The woman sighs, but eventually agrees. As they wait, Sonia clings to her bag, her eyes darting around the room. It's clear she's uncomfortable here, and David places a reassuring hand on her shoulder. After several minutes, the volunteer returns, shaking her head. Sorry, nothing here. David thanks her, though frustration flickers in his eyes. This is just the beginning of their search. But the resistance they face feels like a heavy weight. As they leave the shelter, Sonia opens her notebook again, flipping through the pages with a mix of determination and sadness. This is all I have left, she says softly. I don't even know if these addresses mean anything, but I keep looking because, what if one of them does? David glances at her, understanding the importance of the notebook. It's not just a tool, it's her hope, her connection to the family she's lost. "You are doing the right thing," he says. "We'll figure this out, together." Their next stop is a community center listed in the notebook. The director, a middle-aged man with a stern expression, is initially reluctant to help. "Do you know how many kids come through here looking for someone?" he says, shaking his head. "It's impossible to keep track." David takes a deep breath, fighting the urge to argue. "I understand that," he says calmly. "But this isn't just any child. She's sick, and she's been through more than you can imagine. All I am asking is for you to try." The man finally relents, flipping through a folder of records. He finds an old note mentioning a Martha Green who used to volunteer at the center but hasn't been seen in years. "It's not much," the man admits, handing David a slip of paper with a partial address. "It's enough," David replies, his resolve strengthening. As they leave the center, David's phone buzzes incessantly. He glances at the screen. His assistant is calling again, likely about a meeting he was supposed to attend hours ago. He lets the call go to voicemail, his priorities shifting entirely. Sonia notices and looks up at him. "You don't have to help me if it's too hard," she says quietly. "I know you are busy." David kneels down to her level, shaking his head. "Sonia, what I am doing right now is more important than any meeting. You matter. Don't ever think you are a burden." Her eyes well up with tears, and for the first time she smiles a real, genuine smile. Later that day, David and Sonia arrive at a small library in a nearby town, following the partial address from the community center. The librarian is kind and agrees to help, pulling up public records that lead them to a residential address for a Martha Green. "This could be it," David says, his heart pounding as he writes down the address. But the address isn't close. It's in a rural area, several hours away by car. The weight of the journey ahead settles on them both, but David remains steadfast. "We're going to find her," he says with determination. The journey to the rural town is challenging. Sonia grows tired and anxious, her illness taking its toll. David stops frequently to make sure she's okay, buying her water and snacks, doing his best to keep her spirits up. As they near their destination, Sonia clutches her notebook tightly. "What if she doesn't want me?" she asks softly, her voice trembling. David looks at her, his heart aching. "If she's anything like your parents, she'll love you. And if she can't take care of you, we'll figure something else out. You are not alone anymore." Sonia nods, a flicker of hope returning to her eyes. Sonia clutches David's hand tightly as they walk up to the door. Her small notebook is tucked under her arm, her only source of comfort. For a moment, there is only silence. Sonia's face is a mixture of hope and fear, her eyes glued to the door. Finally, it creaks open, and a woman steps out, a middle-aged woman with tired eyes and hands worn from hard work. "Martha Green?" David asks, his voice steady but gentle. The woman hesitates, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Yes, that's me. Who's asking?" Sonia steps forward, her voice trembling. "Aunt Martha, it's me, Sonia." Martha's eyes widen as she looks at the frail girl in front of her. For a moment, it seems like she doesn't recognize her. But then, realization dawns, and her hand flies to her mouth. "Sonia?" "Oh, my Sonia," Martha whispers, her voice breaking. She kneels down, pulling the girl into a tight embrace. Tears stream down both their faces as the weight of the moment sinks in. David watches silently, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. This is the reunion Sonia had been dreaming of, but he can already sense the underlying tension. After a long moment, Martha stands and ushers them inside. The house is small and sparsely furnished, with signs of wear and struggle everywhere. Martha sits at the table, holding Sonia's hand tightly, but her expression shifts to one of worry. "I didn't know where you were," Martha says. "After your parents, I thought someone had taken you into foster care. I didn't know you were out there all alone. I tried to find you," Sonia replies. "I thought you might not want me." Martha's face crumples. "Of course I want you," she says softly. But her voice trails off and David speaks up. "But it's hard, I can see that." Martha nods, her eyes filled with shame. "I don't have much. I work 2 jobs just to keep this roof over my head. I don't know how I'd take care of her the way she needs, especially if she's sick." Sonia looks down at her lap. the glimmer of hope in her eyes fading. David feels his chest tighten. This moment is supposed to be a happy reunion, but instead it's filled with uncertainty. "Martha," David says, leaning forward. "Sonia needs someone. She needs stability, care, and most of all, love. I know things are hard, but maybe we can find a way to make this work together." "What do you mean?" Martha asks, her voice cautious but curious. David takes a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "I want to help. I've gotten to know Sonia, and I can see how much she means to you. I'll cover her medical expenses, make sure she gets the treatments she needs. And if you need financial support to keep things stable here, I'll help with that too." Martha's eyes widen in shock. "Why would you do that? You don't even know us." David glances at Sonia, who's watching him with wide, tearful eyes. "Because someone has to. Sonia deserves a chance, and I have the resources to give her that. I can't just walk away knowing she needs help." Martha looks at Sonia, then back at David. Her expression softens, and tears begin to fall. "I don't know how to thank you," she says. I didn't think anyone cared enough to do something like this." "You don't need to thank me," David replies. "Just promise me you'll do everything you can to give her the love and support she needs. That's all that matters." Sonia's lip trembles as she looks at her aunt. "Does this mean I can stay with you?" Martha pulls her into another embrace. "Yes, sweetheart, you are staying right here with me. We'll figure this out together." In the weeks that follow, Sonia begins her journey to recovery. David stays involved, checking in regularly and coordinating her treatments with the help of Nurse Lisa at the clinic. Sonia's strength begins to return, and her smile grows brighter with each passing day. Martha, though still struggling financially, finds hope and strength in knowing she's not alone in caring for Sonia. The house starts to feel warmer, filled with laughter and love as they rebuild their lives together. One evening, as David visits them, Sonia hands him her notebook. "I don't need this anymore," she says with a smile. David looks at her, surprised. "I found my aunt." "And you?" David feels a lump in his throat as he accepts the notebook. "You are incredible, you know that?" he says. Sonia grins. "I learned from you. It's easy to walk past someone in need, to tell yourself their problems are too big, too complicated for you to solve." That's what David used to believe too. But when he met Sonia, everything changed. Sonia showed him and us that even the smallest act of kindness can create ripples of change. A moment of listening, a helping hand, a word of encouragement, these are the seeds of hope that can grow into something life-changing. This story isn't just about David or Sonia, it's about all of us. Every single one of us has the power to make a difference. Still, we can't ignore the bigger picture. Children like Sonia, children without homes, without health care, and without a safety net, they're not alone. There are thousands, even millions, just like her, falling through the cracks of a system that wasn't built to catch them. It's not just a story, it's a reality. Did you know that 1 in 30 children experiences homelessness each year in the United States? And that millions lack access to affordable health care? These aren't just numbers, they're real children, real lives. But there is something we can do. We can step in. We can choose kindness. We can support those who are already fighting to make a difference: volunteers, healthcare workers, and organizations working tirelessly to fill the gaps where the system has failed. You don't have to solve everything. You just have to do something. Volunteer at a shelter. Donate to organizations that support children's healthcare. Speak up for policies that protect the vulnerable. Every small action matters. Imagine if we all did just one thing. One small step. What kind of world could we create? A world where no child like Sonia ever feels alone again. Sonia's story is a reminder of what's possible when we choose empathy over indifference, kindness over convenience, action over apathy. The question is, what will you do next? Be the change, volunteer, donate, advocate. Together we can create a better future for everyone.